On today's show, what do the Mavericks need to do in training camp? Can they establish an identity? And I'm answering more of your questions on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Join the Raccoon Squad, be an everydayer, subscribe, like the video, follow for free wherever you get your podcast or on YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section, what's your biggest question for Mavs training camp? I'll go in and I'll try to answer a bunch of them in the YouTube comments. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter promo code LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle with any purchase. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that. If you want to support our show, text us. Get text alerts from us on Mavs Rumors. Watch film with me. I'm sending out a couple more Mavs watches today on Josh Green and Jaden Hardy. So if you want to do stuff like that, subscribe to our subtext. Click the link in the description or text the number on the screen. There it goes. There goes the number. Isaac Harris out today. He is celebrating his 10th wedding anniversary with his wife. They're going on a trip. They're going to a Ravens game. Very happy for Isaac, leaving his kids in Kentucky, and he's going to Baltimore. Good morning, Baltimore. Here comes Isaac Harris. So Isaac Harris out for today and the next couple of days. We're going to hang out. I'm going to have some good guests coming in next week, so you won't want to miss next week's shows, as well as we are now, if you're listening to this on Friday, 5 days from Mavs Training Camp. It's coming on Wednesday. I'm going to go to the facility and be at Mavs Training Camp. You can tell just like the molecules in me are excited. Like I can feel excitement. It's coming. Like it's back. I can see it in the numbers of the podcast. There's this point in the season where the numbers dip, and then when training camp starts, they come back. And I'm ready for all you guys to come back. But you that are here right now, you're the real ones. You're part of the Raccoon Squad. You're an everydayer. I appreciate each and every one of you. This is what we're going to talk about today. I asked the subtexters, send me questions about the Mavs training camp and about the Mavericks, because this is the last off-season mailbag we'll probably do, because the season's, like, the training camp's about to start. They're about to play preseason games. We'll have some actual basketball and some quotes and things to talk about. So this is the last off-season mailbag that we're going to do. I've got a ton of questions. I'm really excited to answer some of them. Do I think the Mavericks will be able to establish an identity? And what do they need to do to establish their identity? Thought that was a great one. A bunch of rapid fire questions I'll do at the end. What would you consider the Mavericks, season as a success? Like, what would have to happen? What's the most beneficial thing the front office can do for the Mavs to win a championship in the next 3 years? It's a tough question. I think I got that one. What's more likely? Jason Kidd winning Coach of the Year or Jaden Hardy winning Sixth Man of the Year? And then a bunch more questions like that. But I want to start here. Our friend Gracie on Subtext asked a great question. What's the biggest thing, the most important thing you're watching in Mavs training camp? Like I said, it's coming up Wednesday. We will have full coverage of it. I'll be at every one of them asking questions there, making sure that you guys get the best coverage. I'll be sending stuff to the subtexters, so subscribe to the subtext. Follow me on TikTok as well. I'm at Nick Van Exit on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, so you can follow me on any one of those to get videos, shorts, things like that. I'll be sending them from training camp. When I start to think about Mavs training camp, and this Mavs training camp is maybe one of the most important ones we've had in a while, because the beginning of this season is going to be the most important one we've seen in a while, because the beginning of last season didn't matter too much. The Mavericks are riding high off of the Western Conference Finals run. You're thinking, oh man, this Mavericks team, they didn't start off the season super well. Then they make this trade with Porzingis. They establish an identity. They end the season like gangbusters. Oh, we're riding into next year. Oh, dang, we lose Jalen Brunson. That kind of sucks. But still, we're this team that establishes identity. We should be good this year, right? Like going into the season, it didn't seem like you were as glued to your TV, glued to your phone on what's happening with the Mavericks or what's going to happen to start the season. That's what's going to happen this year. You're going to be glued to everything. And I think we should be. And I think that the Mavericks are going to have some heat. Not Miami. They're going to have some heat. It's not 105 outside anymore, but there's going to be some heat on this Mavericks team to start the season well or at least decent. Because if they don't, If this season starts badly, if the season starts poorly for the Mavericks, that's tough. Because what decisions do you have to make then? Can you just change up the rotation? Do they start so badly that Jason Kidd's seat starts to get warm? That Mark Cuban walks over to his seat at the AAC, turns on the seat warmer? Is that what's going to happen with this team? And so I think that this training camp is a really important one because the beginning of the season is a very important one. And there's a bunch of things we don't know. So that's what I start with is what things don't we know about this team yet? What's the starting five outside of Luka and Kyrie? We think it's going to be Josh Green, Grant Williams, and Dwight Powell. Do the Mavericks think it's that? Are the Mavericks sold on that? We don't know. They started JaVale McGee last year and then made the switch about 7 games into the season. Do they know who the starting five is? So I'm starting to look for quotes. I'm starting to look for things that stand out. Is somebody like Richaun Holmes standing out? Are they saying who the starting lineup is? Things like that I'm starting to watch in training camp. Next thing that we don't know yet, that I'm curious to see if we get any clues on in training camp. What's the plan for the rookies? You've got these 2 guys, Dereck Lively II, Olivier-Maxance Prosper. And they're both super important for the Mavericks' future. They represent 2 key positions that they desperately need very badly. 2 key skill sets that they desperately need this season very badly. We've heard from Nico Harrison when they did their draft presser that these guys probably won't be in the G League. He said, I don't view them in the G League. And then we heard from Tim McMahon. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Dereck Lively plays in the G League some. Okay, well, which is it going to be? Have they changed their mindset? Did getting Richaun Holmes change some of that? What's the mind? Do they have a trade that they're waiting on? Are they waiting for all this James Harden stuff to move so then all of a sudden they get a DeAndre Ayton or somebody? Is there something they don't know, right? And so what's the plan for the rookies? Does Omax, does he start standing out as, man, like everyone's saying at training camp that Omax is really standing out and that he could be a real player in the rotation or he could be one of the starters, right? Like, if we start to hear stuff like that, that's super exciting. Oh, man. And maybe we hear stuff about Dereck Lively. He's working out with Tyson Chandler. He's grown so much over the summer. He's gained weight. He's working on his jump shot. He's doing all the things that you want him to do. He's clicking with Luka early. Like, do we hear stuff about Dereck Lively?
Yo, you see Apple Jacks?
And maybe he's more ready than we think right away. And that would be a huge development for this team. So I look for the plan for the rookies. What's Jason Kidd's plan? Or does Jason Kidd slow roll and say, hey, well, like he does with pretty much everything, right? Hey, these guys are young. Dereck Lively is 19. How many times has he done that with Luka? How many times has he did that with Hardy last year? He's 19. We don't expect him to come out and be good right away. You know, I can just feel Jason Kidd doing that too. So it could be one end of the spectrum or the other. The other thing that we don't know yet about this team that I'm looking for in training camp, where do we stand with this Tim Hardaway, Seth Curry, Jaden Hardy trio? Because they kind of all do the same thing. Curry's the shortest. The other 2 are 6'5". Curry's like 6'2". And Curry can handle the ball a little bit more. He can do some more stuff in a pick and roll. They tried Jaden Hardy at the point guard in Summer League. Didn't go very well. The Mavericks would admit that it didn't go super. The Mavericks did admit that. Jared Dudley did admit that when he was on with Mark Stein on his show on The Freak. And so that didn't go well in Summer League. I don't think they're going to ask Jaden Hardy to do some of those things with the Mavericks now. And so where do we stand with that trio? What happens with those guys? Who plays the most? Is it Tim, Seth, Jaden Hardy in that order? Is that because that's the way it seems to me coming in? That's the way it is pay-wise. That's the way it is, like, you know, minutes that they've played for the Mavericks in the past. So I'm curious where we stand with those 3. But coming up, I've got a couple more things that we should look for in training camp, things that are important, things that I'm watching for, including what do the newcomers do? And then can the Mavericks identify an identity in training camp? I've got the answer coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs are incredible stretch khaki shorts. There was somebody in the comments yesterday that said, I'm tired of hearing you talk about swamp butt. Can we have a different advertiser? The answer is no. Because You shouldn't have swamp butt with bird dogs. This is what I'm telling you. You're not listening to me when I talk about bird dogs. I can wear these shorts without underwear or with underwear, and either way, their anti-stink sweat wicking fabric will keep you cool and dry all day long. You can walk anywhere you want, hang out with them. You can go to a meeting if your work is a little more casual. You can wear them outside. You can play sports in them. You can do all kinds of stuff with bird dogs. And right now, you can go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Enter the promo code LockedOnNBA at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. You can get a free water bottle with your order. Again, birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that promo code. Again, birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you that.
I need a recovery beer.
Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad. If you're here right now, if you're listening right now, September 21st, 22nd, 23rd, man, you're an everydayer. You're a part of the Raccoon Squad. You're a card-carrying member. These are the cards, I guess. I guess the stickers are the cards, so if you've got one. Gracie asked the question, the biggest, most important thing you're watching for in training camp. I named some of the things earlier. We're looking for things that we don't know yet. What's the starting five? What's the plan for the rookies? Where do we stand with this guard trio of Tim Hardaway, Seth Curry, and Hardy? The next thing I'm looking for, something that we don't know yet. Do any of the newcomers stand out? I think Grant Williams is exempt from this because I expect Grant Williams to stand out. I expect him to be a starter. I expect him and the Mavericks to be high on him and high on what he can do. His skill set just fits too well. He shoots the ball too well. He can defend too well for him to not stand out and be a starter. They need him too badly in that spot. So I'm going to push him to the side for now. Grant, go to the side. Come hang out with me at another Wings game. Stay over there. Which newcomers stand out? Richaun Holmes, Dante Exum, Derrick Jones Jr., Seth Curry. Talked about Seth Curry earlier. He's in that weird trio with those guards. If Seth Curry is so good for this offense. He can handle the ball a little bit. If we ask the question, who's the third ball handler, and we get the answer.
People forget about Frank.
If we get an answer like that, that's kind of a walk around the answer kind of answer from a Nico Harrison or a Jason Kidd. Maybe Seth Curry steps into that spot. Or maybe Seth Curry is the answer to that. And if he is, then that maybe gives us an answer. Like, Seth Curry is going to, anytime Kyrie is off the floor and Luka is on, Seth is going to be nailed to his hip because we need those outside shots. If we hear something like that, then maybe Seth Curry's got a for sure spot in this rotation and they're excited to have him. Or if they talk highly about bringing him in and adding him as a piece. Richaun Holmes is a big one. He could really answer some questions at center depth. He could be the starting center. He really could. If he goes back to the Richaun Holmes we saw in Sacramento, not last year, but the year before that, then that's something that could really, really change some of the could change some of the outcomes for this Mavericks team. Because it's not just that Dwight Powell isn't a good starting center in the NBA. He's a great depth piece. He's a great bench player. But it's that it was Dwight Powell and then the answers behind him were not good at all, right? Like, it can't just be Dwight. It's not fair to Dwight. It's not fair to this team. But if Richaun Holmes can all of a sudden come in and play really well, and you have the minutes that Maxey is going to play, and then whatever Derek Lively can give you, all of a sudden your rotation is much better than it was last season, and that gives you more of an answer than if it was just Dwight Powell again and you run it back. So does Richaun Holmes stand out? Do they talk about him in training camp? Dante Exum. What does Dante Exum bring to this team? He had a really strong FIBA run. He brings some stuff to this team that they could really use. The Exum-Kyrie lineups when Luka's off the floor, I think could be really, really good. I could see those two working really well together. Does Exum's three-point shot start hitting like it was in FIBA, like it was overseas for the last 2 years in EuroLeague? If it does, Dante Exum could have a real shot at minutes on this team, and he could really help this team because they need a big guard that can handle, that can, maybe he's the third ball handler. I talked about Curry earlier, but maybe Exum is the guy that we say, who's the third ball handler?
People forget about Frank.
And then maybe it's people forget about Dante Exum because he's been away for 2 years. If Nico Harrison says people forget about Dante Exum, that's it. Pack it up. That'd be the most amazing thing. That'd be the funniest thing in niche Mavs coverage in a long time, I think. Because I know that the Mavericks listen to our show and others at times, They've got and I know that they peruse Twitter. I know this because Jason Kidd brought up one of my tweets last year at a press conference. So, and I know Mavs PR does. You know that they have to know that the people forget about Frank joke is out there, right? It's too prevalent on Mavs spaces online. If he says people forget about Dante Exum, that would make my week, I think. That'd be so funny. And then Derrick Jones Jr. Does Derrick Jones Jr. stand out as, well, he's definitely getting minutes over Omax. Omax is not ready. Derrick Jones Jr. is going to be that wing off the bench. It would be a little bit of a bummer. No offense to Derrick Jones Jr., but I think Mavs fans are very excited about Omax and what he could be. But does Derrick Jones Jr. stand out? Do they start talking about how Derrick Jones Jr. just brings this energy and this athleticism that we need in transition, and he's just somebody that we haven't had in a long time, and he's really standing out. So who stands out? Which of the newcomers stands out? That's what I'm looking for in training camp. They're going to say good things about all of them, obviously, but which ones really stand out? We've got to piece through the different things that Nico Harrison, Jason Kidd, and others will say about these guys. Another question that I'm looking for, something that we don't know yet. Who's the third two-way guy? We still technically have a roster spot, quote unquote, for the third two-way guy. We've got AJ Lawson. We've got Mike Miles Jr. from TCU. And who's the third guy? They've got some Exhibit 10 guys that are going to be able to, at least try for it. You've got Jelly Walker. You've got Joe Wieskamp. You've got Greg Brown III. You've got some guys that are going to be able to try for this spot. And so who is the guy that steps in and is the third two-way guy? That's something that we want to know in training camp. I'm sure we'll learn it. We'll definitely learn it by the end because they're going to have to cut somebody. We may learn before the international trip because I don't know, do they want to take all these guys in the international? They probably will. The next question is about identity, something that we don't know. What's the identity of this team? And this came in with a different question off subtext, so I want to move to this. The question was, do you think the Mavs will be able to build a unique identity right away in camp that, in my opinion, is required for every successful team, or do you see it taking longer / forming in the middle of the season? Amazing question. You didn't put your name with this, but great work on that. I think you're totally right that every successful team needs to have some kind of identity. You've got to have some identity in some way. The Mavericks already have some of that with Luka. It's very clear. Very clear. We are a pick and roll, catch and shoot. Luka creates a bunch of stuff team. And now Kyrie as well. So we are our guards don't defend that well. They can defend. They can, but they don't defend that well. But they can create some offense, man. We're going to be an incredible offensive team that's just going to try on defense. So they've got some identity, but I think the defensive identity is going to be tough. And I think that's what the question is alluding to, is can they build a unique identity right away? Can they build any kind of identity that has them, pushing the ball in transition? Because Kyrie tried to push the pace last year. Kyrie, you could already tell that his style was pushing the Mavericks in a direction that they hadn't gone in a couple of years. Kyrie jumping in the middle of the season is not going to push his agenda, quote unquote, or his, way of basketball or the way that he's successful as much as Kyrie starting the season. I'm very curious what happens there too. And that's part of the identity, is does Kyrie influence the identity on the court? Does he try to push them forward, which I think would be a great thing. I think they need to push it forward. We saw Slovenia and Luka. It is possible for them. They've got to get stops. They've got to get out and run a little bit, and they've got to rebound, right? You've got to rebound in order to push out in transition because hold on, let me break this to you. If you're going to play in transition, you have to have the ball. So, I know this is the type of analysis you get here on Locked On Mavs. So, can they build some kind of identity? How much is Kyrie part of that on-court identity? Can Luka, what's the identity between Luka and Kyrie when Luka's on, when Kyrie's off? Can they meld that together and become a team identity? I don't think they can do that in one training camp. I think it's going to take a little bit to start the season. I think this international trip is going to help. I think that them having to play some of these preseason games, I think that it'll take a little while. I think it'll take maybe a transaction like it did 2 years ago when they traded Porzingis. I think it'll take something like that. I think it'll take somebody popping that we didn't know before. Is it Dante Exum? Is it Seth Curry? Do they just become this incredible three-point shooting team where we go, oh my gosh, they just drain threes from all over the place? because you've got Seth and Jaden Hardy and Tim Hardaway. Like that could be their identity. They just bomb threes. They take 45 threes a game, right? Like that would be an identity that they could have. So very great question about identity. It's something we'll monitor the whole season. We'll talk about identity and what they can be, what they are, because I don't think Jason Kidd ever really established what the identity was last year. But 2 years ago, they did a great job of identifying, hey, we are the ISO team with Luka and Brunson. We defend with our two wings. We rotate a ton. We've got these mobile bigs. One of them can shoot really well in Maxey, and so we can space the floor, do all, like, that's what our identity, and we love playing with each other. We've got this great chemistry because we built it in the bubble. We built it in the playoffs against the Clippers, and now we're here. Porzingis is gone, so there's nothing weird anymore about who's getting the ball and which player is taking what shots. Everybody knows. Everybody knows the drill and the deal. That was 2 years ago. Amazing identity. Great for this team. Last year, nothing close to that. Dinwiddie's gone. Dorian's gone. Brunson's gone. All of a sudden, Kyrie comes in. Now, all of a sudden, this team has two alphas in a way. And Luka's obviously the alpha, and Kyrie is totally, pushing him forward. But Kyrie has this way of playing that also changes what we do. We've got these young guys that are not established. And Christian Wood wants his own thing. And JaVale McGee wants his own thing. And you've just got all these different things going on last year. The team wasn't very good, and boom, no identity. That's the thing you're looking for. Coming up, let me answer some rapid fire questions. We've got a ton of different questions about the, what would make a successful season. What can the Mavericks do to win a championship in the next 3 years? We've got all that coming up. But before we do, new sponsor alert. If you're tired of hearing about Swamp Butt, we've got DoorDash. DoorDash has you covered with all kinds of stuff. If you're missing syrup for your pancakes, you just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer, with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it. You can get DoorDash delivered to your door. It's super easy. I've used it before when I'm at home and I'm like, man, I just don't want to go out one more time. Or my wife and I only have one car right now, so she's gone and I got to get food and I don't want to make something myself. Call DoorDash. You need fresh groceries, you can also get that too. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your favorite restaurants, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers to grocery delivery, man. That's crazy. You don't even have to leave your house for groceries anymore. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $25 value when you see the code LOCKEDONNBA. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Limited time offer. Terms apply. That's 50% off, $20, no minimum subtotal, and delivery fees on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app in the App Store, enter the code LOCKEDONNBA. See the offer that they give you. Again, don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONNBA, all one word, for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
I have to apologize that you felt that he should have played more.
All right, Isaac, let me rapid fire through some of these questions because we got a ton of them and I'm excited to answer. Matt asked the question, Nick and Isaac, what would you consider a successful season for the Mavs after the disappointment of last season? To me, they've got to finish top 6 and make the playoffs. That would be a great bounce back. At the very least, make the playoffs. So even if they make the play-in and they win the play-in and get to they've got to make the playoffs. The only ones that Isaac deems as real postseason is the playoffs. So they've got to make that. Another question. What's the most beneficial thing the Mavericks front office can do to win a championship in the next 3 years? Number one, I'll go Madrashad. Number one, is Luka and Kyrie the duo? Is it them? Can they do it? Can they win in the NBA? We've got to figure that out. You just got to figure that out. Because you've made the move. You've brought in Kyrie. Luka's obviously the guy. Is that the duo? If you've answered that question, and maybe this season we learned that they have. Maybe this team wins 50 games, and you're like, oh man, what were we thinking last year? This team is good. They just needed a training camp under their belt. All that. The next thing you got to do is, so let's say you figured out Luka and Kyrie. You've then got to establish 5 more high-end starting type level players. Yikes. And I don't know that they have one of those right now at this point. They could have multiple, but look at the teams that have won a title over the last 5 years. The Nuggets had 6 high-end rotation players. This is not your Christian Brown, your Browns, your Jeff Greens. This is your Bruce Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Jokic. Six high-end rotation players. Warriors, same thing. 6 high-end rotation players. The Bucks, a couple years ago, they had 5, but then you also have the Portis, Connaughton, Dante DiVincenzo. So maybe that's 6.5 high-end rotation players, because Connaughton was big deal on that team. Dante helped a lot. Could be 8. You could consider those guys high-end rotation players, but definitely 5, and then maybe Portis on that. So that's almost 6. The Lakers in the bubble, they had 7 high-end rotation players. Count Kuzma, Caruso, all that. And then they had Markieff Morris, Dwight Howard, and JaVale McGee outside of that 7. Whew. That's a lot. The Raptors had 8. They had 8 high-end players, going all the way down to Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, all that. Kyle Lowry, Kawhi, Siakam. They had a bunch. So I think the Mavericks have to get at least 5 more on top of Luka and Kyrie. They've got to find those to win a title in the next 3 years. It may take a couple years to find those. They don't have to find them right now, because I don't think we expect them to win a title next year. But if it's Luka and Kyrie, then who's the other 7? Grant Williams, Josh Green, Maxi Kleba, Seth Curry. That's 4. Maybe Tim instead of Seth, so I'll still count that as 4. Then you're like, all right, what's Jaden Hardy? What's Derek Lively? What's Omax? And they've got to be high-end starters and high-end players as well. I don't know that we can say any of these guys are high-end rotation players. Grant Williams, Maxi Kleba, absolutely rotation players. They've played in playoffs. They've won playoff games. They've been to conference finals. We know that they can. The other ones, I don't know. And I don't even know if Grant Williams and Maxi Kleba are high-end rotation players yet. I think Grant Williams is going to prove that this year. But yeah, this is the question you have to answer. And then depth and culture pieces. Is Dwight Powell still around? Derrick Jones Jr. types. Who else emerges from that? Okay. Another question. What's more likely? Jason Kidd winning Coach of the Year, Jaden Hardy winning 6th Man of the Year. And I think the question was posed, I know neither of these are likely, but let's say which one is. I think it's more likely Kidd wins Coach of the Year, because I'm nervous about Jaden Hardy. Because another question was asked, who won't meet expectations and why? And I think just going off of the expectations I see on Twitter, on Reddit, on all that, I think Jaden Hardy won't meet Mavericks fans' expectations. I think he'll meet mine, but I don't think he'll meet Mavericks fans, because I think that some people expect his 16 to 18 point per game leap to happen this year. And historically it hasn't, with guys like Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey. Their leap happened when they were 21. He's going to be 20. I think it'll take one more year for Jaden Hardy to make that leap. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. It'd be amazing to be wrong about that.
Hardy, let's go party.
But I think that his leap will happen next, so I think he will disappoint Mavericks fans a little bit more. And minutes are going to be tough. We've already talked about the Tim Hardaway, Seth Curry trio. So I think Kidd winning Coach of the Year is more likely, because what if the Mavericks win 55 games? They're amazing in the clutch or whatever. Luka and Kyrie are really healthy. They win 50-something games, and all of a sudden everyone's like, man, Jason Kidd did a great job with this team that was terrible last year. The narrative can be built. Andrew asks, who is the bigger impact, Holmes, Exum, or Jones Jr.? I think it's going to be Richaun Holmes. Richaun Holmes is motivated to come in and erase all the stuff from last year. He got pushed to the end of the bench as far off as he could. He had a lot of off-the-court stuff he dealt with that he dealt with and is behind him now. And I think that he's going to be very motivated. He's also fits the skill set so well of what the Mavericks want in a center. And I think him and Luka can connect. And if they do, that's going to be a really big deal for him in his game. Last time we saw him play with a really good point guard, Tyrese Halliburton, who was young, real young, he was amazing. Or he was really good as a center. So I think it's going to be Richaun Holmes pretty easily. Of that group, Holmes, Exum, Jones Jr. There you go. Again, in the comments, what's your biggest question for Mavs Training Camp? I'll try to go in and answer as many as you can. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Nick Van Exit. Guys, we'll be back. Mavs Training Camp next week. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom!